The North Pole was not always peaceful, not always wrapped in quiet snowfall and lit by the warm amber glow of workshop windows. Long before the jingling bells and the laughter of elves, long before children dreamed of gifts on winter nights, the Arctic had been a battleground of ancient magic, magic older than Christmas itself. Santa Claus, though the world knew him as a symbol of joy, had once been something much different, a warrior of the northern realms, a keeper of winter sorcery, and a defender of the light that now fueled Christmas. And the witch, the one whispered about in the oldest forbidden scrolls, had once been his equal. It began again on a night not unlike any other in December, though Santa felt the shift long before anyone spoke of it. He sat in his private chamber, polishing the centuries, old sleigh runners, when a sudden gust of wind pressed against the window. It was not unusual for storms to batter the pole, but this wind carried something else, something beneath the howling, almost like a voice speaking through clenched teeth, a faint W.H. Pizer, a name his name. Claus, he froze, the sleigh runner slipped from his hand and clanged against the stone floor. His breath misted in the lamplight, though the room was warmed by a roaring fire. Santa turned his head slowly toward the frosted window, the shadows stretching unnaturally across the glass as if they were alive. The whisper faded, almost mocking him, and the storm returned to being just wine. But he knew better. For centuries he had felt her presence, always on the edge of the winter horizon. Every Christmas Eve she tried to claw her way back into his life, her purpose unchanged, to end him, to drain his magic, and to smother Christmas forever. She had been banished, yes, banished by his own hand, cast into the frozen void where magic unraveled and souls froze into silence. But the ancient sorceress was patient, too patient. Every year she grew stronger, fueled by the fear of children, by the cold places in the world where joy could not reach. But this year felt different. This year she felt closer. Santa rose slowly, his joints creaking not from age. He did not age in the way humans did, but from tension. His magic felt strained, its usual glow replaced by a faint flickering, like a candle struggling against the wind. He stepped to the window and wiped a hand across the frost. Beyond the glass lay the endless snowy fields, the stables in the distance, the faint glow of the workshop. Everything looked the same, yet an unease hung in the air like a shadow draped over the world. Behind him the door creaked open. "Sir," a voice called. It was Pinewick, one of the older elves, his eyes wide and shining with worry. We've found something near the stables." Santa's gaze sharpened. What kind of something? Pinewick swallowed. A rune. The temperature in the room dropped another few degrees. Santa didn't need to ask what kind. He already knew. Every year they appeared, carved into ice, etched into walls, burned into snow. Marks of a return. He followed Pinewick out into the frigid night. Snowflakes drifted down in slow spirals, each one catching the light from the lanterns the elves held. As they approached the stables, Santa noticed something wrong. The reindeer were restless, hooves scraping the ground, breath coming in frantic bursts. Their eyes darted around the shadows. The rune was carved into the wooden post by the door, a spiraling pattern like a twisted serpent eating its own tail, a mark of binding, a mark of power, a mark older than Santa himself. Santa crouched to inspect it. The rune pulsed faintly with dark energy, the lines shimmering with a shade of black that seemed to swallow the torchlight instead of reflecting it. He reached out a hand toward it, his glove hovering just an inch away, and the rune vibrated, whispering in a voice only he could hear. "Claus," he jerked his hand back. "She's returned," Pinewick whispered, as if afraid speaking too loudly would summon her. Santa stood slowly. "She's been returning every year, but this," his voice cracked, "something nearly unheard of. This is stronger." Another elf approached trembling. "Sir, the others. They found more runes on the workshop walls." Santa's heart tightened. If she was marking the workshop, it meant she had already crossed the border of their defenses. The enchanted barrier that shielded the North Pole was weakening. The night deepened as Santa walked around the perimeter of the workshop. Each wall bore another rune, carved with precision and infused with magic that pulsed like a heartbeat. The elves clustered behind him, too afraid to get close. Some whispered prayers in their native tongue, others held trembling lanterns. Santa touched one of the runes, letting a tiny spark of his magic brush against it. Instantly he felt a pull, a siphoning sensation, as if something were draining him from the inside. He snapped his hand back with a gasp. Pinewick stared up at him. "Sir, what does it mean? Why now?" Santa didn't answer. He looked up at the swirling sky. Snow fell thicker now, but not naturally. It moved in strange patterns, spiraling downward like falling ash. Within the flurries he spotted faces, brief, fleeting visions. Eyes staring, mouths moving in silent screams, spirits trapped within the storm. She was here. The witch had grown powerful enough to control the very weather around them. That meant she had found something, some source of strength, hidden in the forgotten corners of the Arctic. Santa felt the old dread creeping through him. Long ago she had nearly won, nearly ended him, nearly ended everything. He motioned for the elves to return to the workshop, lock the doors, seal the windows. No one goes out alone. Pinewick hesitated. "What about you?" Santa looked toward the distant cliffs that marked the edge of the North Pole's magical territory. A faint green glow flickered their ghostly lights, swirling in slow, deliberate patterns. It was not the northern lights. It was something far older. "I need to see something," he said. He trudged through the deepening snow, each step crunching loudly. The world around him was drenched in eerie stillness. The only sound was the whispering wind, which carried fragments of laughter, weeping, and chanting, dark chanting, ancient chanting. His breath thickened in the air as he climbed the ridge. Once he reached the top, the lights came into full view. They hovered like floating flames, green and blue, flickering without heat. Beneath them a circle of ice stretched across the ground, a place he had hoped never to see again, the circle of frosted souls. It was where he had fought her, where he had cast her into the void. The memory hit him like a blow. He saw flashes of the battle, her hands weaving spells, her eyes blazing with hatred, her voice shrieking his old name, not Santa, but the one he had abandoned long ago. He felt again the terrible moment when he unleashed the spell that banished her, a spell that tore through reality and froze her essence in the abyss between worlds. Now the circle was cracked, and the cracks glowed with the same eerie light as the floating flames. Something had broken through. Santa approached cautiously. As he neared the center, a vibration rippled through the ice. The cracks widened, glowing brighter, and then silence. A silence too complete to be natural. Then a figure appeared at the far edge of the circle, tall, thin, wrapped in tattered black robes that fluttered without wind. Her hair was long and white, flowing behind her like strands of frost. Her skin was pale as snow, but her eyes burned with a black fire that consumed all warmth. Santa's breath caught. She spoke, her voice layered, echoing, as if many voices spoke through her. "Hello, old friend." He felt his magic recoil. "You're dead," he said, barely above a whisper. Her smile stretched across her face, too wide, too sharp. "Am I, or did you only wish me to be?" She stepped forward, and the snow beneath her feet melted into black slush. For centuries. She hissed, "I have watched you, from the void, from the cracks in the world. Every Christmas Eve you shine your magic across the earth, and every Christmas Eve I reach for it." Santa steadied himself. "Why come now? Why break the circle?" Her laugh was a dry, brittle sound that made the air shiver. "Because you are weaker than you have ever been. Your magic wanes, your elves are frightened, and you—" She tilted her head, staring at him with chilling amusement. "You grow tired." A surge of cold swept through Santa, stronger than any blizzard. It clawed into his chest, squeezing, suffocating. He staggered back. She was already attempting to drain him. But then a horn sounded behind him. Elven horns, warning horns. Santa's eyes widened. The workshop. She smiled as if reading his mind. Yes, they opened the door, to let someone in. She vanished. Santa ran. He sprinted down the snowy slope, his boots digging deep, breath tearing through him like knives. The storm intensified, swirling around him in chaotic spirals. Shadows darted through the blizzard, whispering, laughing, taunting him. He shoved them aside, his magic burning through each apparition with bursts of white light. The workshop came into view, its windows flickering wildly. Something moved across the rooftop. Something crawling, long limbs, too many limbs. Santa pushed forward, bursting through the front doors. The eaves inside were in chaos, running in circles, shouting, crying. Runes glowed on the walls, spreading like cracks in glass. The air felt heavy, thick with dark enchantment. Pinewick rushed toward him, gasping. "She's inside. She walked through the walls. Santa didn't wait." He marched deeper into the workshop. Tools lay scattered everywhere, toes half built, lights flickering overhead. The shadows grew longer with each step, twisting unnaturally. He could feel her presence, like a cold hand on the back of his neck. As he turned a corner, a gust of icy wind nearly knocked him back. The corridor beyond was pitch black. His magic flickered in his palms, the glow weak. Then he saw her. She stood at the far end of the hall, her figure taller now, her robes spreading across the floor like living tendrils. Her eyes glowed faintly beneath her hood. She raised one hand and the walls around her shifted, the wood twisting into bar-like texture covered in runes. The workshop was becoming her lair. "You built this place from my power," she said. "Did you never wonder why your magic shines brightest in December? Why the world bends to your will on one night and one night only?" Santa froze. She stepped toward him, shadows curling around her feet. "Because it was never just your power, it was ours." The words hit him like a physical blow. He felt the truth in them, buried deep in memories he had forced himself to forget. Before he became Santa, before he became the bringer of joy, he had been something else, a sorcerer who worked alongside her. Together they had controlled winter's heart. Together they had balanced the world of cold and magic. But she wanted more, wanted dominion, wanted the eternal night, and he had turned against her. "You stole Christmas from me," she whispered. "You used our magic to create this world of lights and laughter, and I remained in the shadows." Santa stepped forward, pain mixing with resolve. "Christmas was never meant to be yours. You twisted the power we shared." Her eyes flared. "Then I will take it back." The workshop shook violently. Snow blasted through the windows as the storm outside merged with her presence. The elves screamed as shadows rose from the floor, grabbing their ankles, pulling them backward. Santa thrust out a hand, unleashing a burst of light that illuminated the hall. For a moment the shadows recoiled. But the witch only laughed. "You're fading." She raised both arms, the walls split open. Dark tendrils erupted outward, wrapping around Santa's wrists, ankles, chest. They tore into his magic, ripping it from him like threads being pulled from cloth. He gritted his teeth, trying to resist, but the pull was relentless. His vision blurred, his knees buckled. He saw flashes. Children smiling, elves working, reindeer flying. All the joy he had created, all the hope he had spread. It flickered like a dying flame. "No," he gasped, "I won't let you." Her voice was a whisper in his ear, though she stood across the hall. "You already have." And then he saw it, her true form hidden behind the illusion. Not a witch, not a sorceress, but a reflection, a haunting mirror of what he once was. His power was tied to her. His magic came from the bond they once shared, and her hatred had poisoned it for centuries. The realization crashed through him. She was not returning every Christmas Eve to drain him. She was returning because she was part of him. She was the darkness he had cast out to become the symbol of joy. She was the price of his transformation. Every year she clawed her way back because she wasn't just his enemy. She was his shadow, his other half. "You cannot kill what you are," she whispered, stepping closer. "And I cannot die while you live. End Christmas and set us both free." Santa roared, a sound filled with centuries of defiance. Using the last spark of his magic, he tore free from the tendrils and lunged at her, tackling her to the floor. Light exploded around them, ripping through the workshop, blinding everyone. For a moment he saw her face clearly, not twisted, not monstrous. She looked like him, a twin forged from winter, a fragment of himself frozen in malice. Her voice echoed with his own, "You cannot escape what you were." Santa's hands shook as he pressed his palm to her chest, his magic ignited, flooding the room with blinding white. The witch screamed, not from pain but from fury, as she dissolved into swirling frost and shadows. When the light faded, the workshop was silent. The runes were gone, the shadows vanished. The storm outside calmed to a gentle snowfall. Santa stood slowly, breathing heavily. The elves peeked from hiding, trembling but alive. Pinewick approached him carefully. "Sir, is she gone?" Santa looked at his hands. The light had returned, but dimmer than before. The witch was not destroyed. She could never be destroyed. She was part of him, his past, his burden, his shadow. "She's gone," he said softly, "for now." Pinewick swallowed. "Will she come back next year?" Santa stared out the window. The snow fell quietly, peacefully. But beneath the calm he sensed something lingering, a faint whisper in the wind. "Yes," he said, "she always does." He walked outside into the cold air, looking toward the horizon where the storm had faded. In the distance, for just a moment, he saw a flicker of dark robes dissolving into the snow. The bond between them was not broken, and Christmas would always be a battle between who he had become and what he once was.